One man against 250 soldiers. 700 troops facing 42,000. A single machine gunner killing 38 enemies in one night. These soldiers were outnumbered, outgunned, and surrounded. They should have surrendered. They should have died. But they refused to do either. This is the last stand.
Throughout World War II, millions of soldiers faced impossible odds. Most surrendered when surrounded. Most retreated when outnumbered. That was the logical choice, the smart choice, the choice that kept you alive. But this documentary is about the ones who made a different choice. The soldiers who looked at overwhelming enemy forces and decided to fight anyway. Who stood their ground when standing meant death. Who refused to surrender even when surrender was the only reasonable option. Over the next 40 minutes, you'll hear 5 stories of soldiers who were hopelessly outnumbered. One American officer alone on a burning tank facing hundreds of Germans. 700 Polish soldiers blocking 42,000 invading troops. A Marine machine gunner holding a position against wave after wave of attackers. Russian soldiers rising from their graves to charge their enemies one final time. And a British pilot with no legs who became one of the most feared fighters in the sky. These men didn't survive because of luck. They survived because they made a choice. When faced with impossible odds, when surrounded by enemies, when death seemed certain, they chose to fight. And that choice changed everything.
January 26, 1945. The Colmar Pocket, Eastern France. Second Lieutenant Audie Murphy leads his company through frozen forests near the town of Holtzwihr. Audie is 20 years old, looks even younger. 5 feet 5 inches tall, 112 pounds. He joined the army at 17 by lying about his age. In the past year, he's become one of the most decorated soldiers in the American military. But today he faces his greatest test. At 2 p.m., Audie's company of 128 men encounters a massive German force. 6 tanks, over 250 infantry. SS troops, experienced and ruthless. The Germans are launching a desperate counterattack, trying to break out of Allied encirclement. Audie's company is directly in their path. The Americans take defensive positions along a tree line. They have no tanks, no anti-tank weapons powerful enough to stop German armor. Just rifles, machine guns, and a single tank destroyer, an M10 with a 3-inch gun. The German attack begins with artillery. Shells slam into the American positions. Trees explode into splinters. Several men are killed immediately. Then the German tanks advance through the snow, massive panthers and a tiger. Behind them, waves of infantry. Audie's men open fire. Their bullets bounce off the tank armor. The Germans keep coming. The American tank destroyer fires, hits one German tank, damages it, but doesn't stop it. Return fire from the German tanks is devastating. High explosive shells tear through the tree line. More Americans fall. Within 15 minutes, Audie's company has taken 50 casualties, nearly half his force. Men are screaming for medics. Others are running. The company is breaking. Audie makes a decision. He orders his remaining men to fall back to better positions in the woods. They'll regroup, try to hold there. But someone needs to stay forward. Someone needs to slow the German advance, give the others time to establish a new defensive line. Audie climbs onto the burning M10 tank destroyer. The vehicle was hit by German fire minutes earlier. It's on fire. The fuel tank could explode at any moment. The crew has already abandoned it, but the 50 caliber machine gun on top is still functional. Audie grabs the machine gun, looks out at the advancing Germans. 250 soldiers, 6 tanks, and him, alone. He opens fire. The Germans are shocked. They assume the American position was abandoned. They're advancing in the open, confident. Audie cuts down the first wave of infantry. His machine gun fire is precise, disciplined. 1 burst, 2 bursts, 3. Germans fall. The enemy tanks turn toward the burning tank destroyer. They can't believe someone is still on that vehicle. 1 man on a burning machine, in full view of their entire force. The Germans assume it's a trap. There must be more Americans hidden nearby. No one would be that crazy. Audie is that crazy. The German infantry tries to advance. Audie drives them back with machine gun fire. They try to flank him. He rotates the gun, fires in bursts, makes every round count. The Germans call in artillery. Shells explode around the burning tank destroyer. Shrapnel hits Audie in the leg. He ignores it, keeps firing. The tank destroyer beneath him is fully engulfed in flames now. Audie can feel the heat through his boots. The ammunition in the vehicle's storage could cook off at any second. 1 spark in the wrong place and the entire thing explodes with him on top. He doesn't move. German soldiers are now 200 yards away, then 100, then 50. Audie can see their faces. They're shouting at him to surrender. He answers with machine gun fire. The German tanks fire at him. How they miss is inexplicable. Their shells hit around him. 1 passes so close it tears his jacket, but nothing hits him directly. For over an hour, Audie Murphy holds that position alone. 1 man against hundreds, on a burning vehicle that should have exploded, in full view of enemy tanks and artillery. He fires until the machine gun barrel is glowing red, until he's out of ammunition for the 50 caliber. Then he picks up his rifle and keeps shooting. The Germans finally break. They can't advance. This 1 American, this tiny man on the burning death trap, has stopped their entire attack. They pull back, regroup, try to figure out what just happened. When the firing stops, Audie climbs down from the tank destroyer, walks calmly back to his lines. His company has used the time to establish strong defensive positions. The German counterattack has failed. When Audie's commander asks him why he stayed on that burning vehicle, Audie shrugs. "Someone had to," he says simply. "If I hadn't, they would have overrun our position. All my men would have died." The next day, military investigators count the German casualties in front of Audie's position. 50 dead, over 100 wounded, all from 1 man's machine gun. Audie Murphy receives the Medal of Honor, America's highest military decoration. The citation reads, "Second Lieutenant Murphy's indomitable courage and his refusal to give an inch of ground saved his company from possible encirclement and destruction." But Audie doesn't talk about courage. Years later, he'll say he was terrified the entire time. Terrified of the tanks, terrified of the burning vehicle exploding beneath him, terrified of dying, but more terrified of what would happen to his men if he ran. So he stayed. 1 man, 1 machine gun, against 250 enemies. He should have died. He should have fled. He refused to do either. And that refusal saved an entire company. September 6, 1939, the Wizna River, northeastern Poland. 3 days ago, Germany invaded Poland from the west. Now, the German 19th Panzer Corps is racing east toward the fortress of Wizna, a small defensive position guarding a crucial river crossing. Inside the fortress are 720 Polish soldiers, led by Captain Władysław Reginas. They have outdated rifles, a handful of machine guns, some anti-tank rifles, no artillery support, no air support, no tanks. Against them, the German 19th Panzer Corps, 42,000 soldiers, 350 tanks, several hundred artillery pieces, Luftwaffe air support. The Germans outnumber the Poles 60-1. Captain Reginus receives orders from Polish High Command. Hold the crossing for 12 hours. Give the Polish army time to establish defensive positions further east. Delay the German advance, then withdraw. Reginus looks at the German force approaching. He knows his orders are impossible. 700 men cannot hold against 42,000. Not for 12 hours, not for 12 minutes. He gathers his officers, tells them the situation, then says something that will be remembered for generations. We're not holding for 12 hours. We're holding until we run out of ammunition or until we're all dead. No withdrawal, no retreat. If any man wants to leave now, I won't stop him. Every single soldier stays. September 7th, dawn. The German attack begins with an artillery barrage, hundreds of guns firing simultaneously. The earth shakes, trees explode, fortifications collapse. The Polish positions are obliterated, except the Poles aren't in the positions being destroyed. They're in hidden bunkers, underground shelters, waiting. When the artillery stops, German infantry advances, confident. They've just leveled the Polish defenses. There can't be anyone left alive. The Poles open fire, machine guns, rifles, anti-tank rifles targeting German officers. The first wave of Germans is cut down. The attackers are shocked. How is anyone still alive after that artillery barrage? The Germans call in more artillery, pound the Polish positions again, send in more infantry. The Poles drive them back. For 3 days, this pattern repeats. German artillery bombardments, German infantry attacks, German tank assaults, Polish defensive fire, Polish counterattacks when Germans get too close, Polish raids at night to destroy German equipment. The Germans can't believe it. They have 60 times more soldiers, overwhelming firepower, total air superiority, and they can't break through. Captain Reginus moves constantly, encouraging his men, directing fire, personally manning machine guns when needed. During one German assault, he picks up a rifle and fights as an infantry soldier. During another, he helps carry wounded to the aid station. His soldiers call him Captain Courage. On the second day, German bombers target the fortress. Stukas dive bomb the bunkers. Explosions shake the ground. Several bunkers collapse. Dozens of Poles are buried alive. The survivors dig them out, keep fighting. German tanks try to force the crossing. Polish anti-tank rifles disable 6 panzers. The Germans retreat, try again, same result. On the third day, September 9th, the situation becomes desperate. The Poles have been fighting for 72 hours straight. No sleep, limited food, dwindling ammunition. Over half their force is dead or wounded. The Germans have brought in reinforcements. Now it's not 42,000 against 700, it's nearly 60,000 against 350. The odds have gotten worse. Captain Reginus sends a final message to Polish High Command. We are surrounded, running out of ammunition. We'll fight to the last man. Long live Poland. Then he destroys his radio. No more communication, no possibility of surrender orders. That afternoon, the Germans launch their final assault. Every available artillery piece fires on the fortress. For 2 hours, continuous bombardment. Then tanks, dozens of them, rolling over the rubble toward the Polish positions. Behind the tanks, thousands of infantry. The Poles have almost no ammunition left. Some bunkers are down to a handful of bullets per man. They wait until the Germans are at point-blank range, then fire their last rounds. Germans fall, but there are too many. They overwhelm the outer defenses. The Polish soldiers fight hand to hand, bayonets,
rifle butts, knives, bare hands. One bunker, down to 3 defenders, holds out for 20 minutes against a company of Germans. When they finally run out of ammunition, they detonate their remaining grenades, killing themselves and the German soldiers trying to capture them. Captain Reginus is in the command bunker, down to his last magazine. Germans are breaking through the final defensive line. He knows it's over. He gathers the last 20 men around him. "We held for 3 days," he tells them. "We gave them hell. Now we end this on our terms." He pulls the pin on a grenade, places it on a case of ammunition, salutes his men. When the Germans break into the command bunker, the explosion kills everyone inside. The Battle of Wizna is over. 720 Polish soldiers held 42,000 Germans for 3 days. The Germans expected to cross in hours. It took them 72 hours and cost them nearly 1,000 casualties. Polish casualties were 680, almost complete annihilation. But they achieved their mission, delayed the German advance, gave the Polish army precious time, showed the world that Poland would not surrender easily. In Germany, soldiers called it the Polish Thermopylae, comparing it to the ancient battle where 300 Spartans held off the Persian army. In Poland, it became a symbol of national resistance, a reminder that sometimes the only thing you can choose is how you fight, not whether you win or lose. Captain Władysław Reginus was posthumously promoted to major. The Polish government awarded him the highest military honor, but his real legacy is simpler. 700 men were told to hold for 12 hours. They held for 72, because their commander refused to retreat, and his soldiers refused to abandon him. Outnumbered 60-1, with no hope of survival, they stood their ground. That's not courage. That's something beyond courage. That's the refusal to accept defeat, even when defeat is certain.
October 24th, 1942, Guadalcanal, a small island in the Pacific that has become the focal point of the entire war against Japan. The Americans are trying to establish their first major offensive base. The Japanese are trying to throw them back into the sea. Tonight, the Japanese are launching their largest attack yet, 3,000 troops. Their mission is to overrun Henderson Field, the crucial airstrip. Between them and the airfield, a thin line of American Marines. Among those Marines is Sergeant John Basilone, a machine gunner from New Jersey, 26 years old. Before the war, he was a boxer and a soldier. Now he's about to face the longest night of his life. Basilone commands 2 Browning M1917 machine gun sections, 4 guns, 8 men in his crew. Their position is on a ridge overlooking the jungle. If the Japanese break through here, they'll have a clear path to the airfield. At 9 p.m., the Japanese artillery begins. Shells explode across the Marine positions. The barrage lasts 30 minutes, then silence. In the darkness, the Marines hear movement, hundreds of footsteps, branches breaking. The Japanese are coming. Basilone orders his guns to hold fire. Wait until they're close. Conserve ammunition. The Japanese emerge from the jungle in waves, screaming, bayonets fixed. Basilone opens fire. All 4 machine guns simultaneously. The first wave of Japanese soldiers is cut down. The second wave keeps coming. The third wave, the fourth. They keep coming. For hours, Basilone's guns fire continuously. The jungle in front of his position becomes a killing field. Bodies pile up. But the Japanese don't stop. Around midnight, one of Basilone's gun crews is killed. Direct hit from a Japanese grenade. The gun is still functional, but there's no one to operate it. Basilone runs through enemy fire to the gun, sets it up, fires it himself. One man operating a weapon designed for a three-man crew. At 1 a.m., another gun jams, fouled by mud and blood and overheating. Basilone runs to it, disassembles the weapon under fire, clears the jam, reassembles it, gets it firing again, all while Japanese soldiers are less than 50 yards away shooting at him. At 2 a.m., Basilone's position runs out of ammunition. Thousands of rounds expended. The belts are empty. Japanese soldiers are still attacking. This is where most defenders would fall back, abandon the position, regroup with other units. Basilone refuses. He leaves his machine guns, runs 200 yards through jungle filled with enemy soldiers to reach the ammunition supply point, grabs as many belts as he can carry, 70 pounds of ammunition, runs back. Japanese soldiers shoot at him the entire way. Bullets hit the ground at his feet, tear through the vegetation around him. One grazes his arm. He doesn't stop. Basilone reaches his guns, loads them, opens fire again. For 8 hours straight, Basilone fights, operating multiple machine guns, repairing jammed weapons, running ammunition through enemy fire, directing his remaining crew members.
At one point, his guns become so hot from continuous firing that they stop working. The water in the cooling jackets has boiled away. The barrels are glowing. Basilone urinated on the guns to cool them down, then kept firing. By dawn, the Japanese attack has broken. The survivors retreat into the jungle. The Marines count the bodies in front of Basilone's position. 38 confirmed kills. 38 Japanese soldiers killed by Basilone personally. Dozens more killed by his gun crews under his direction. His section held the line, prevented a breakthrough, saved Henderson Field. When relief forces reach Basilone's position, they find him covered in blood and mud. His hands are burned from handling overheated machine gun barrels. His uniform is torn and soaked with sweat. He's been fighting for 8 consecutive hours without rest. The first thing Basilone says is, "Do you have any ammunition? My guns are almost empty again." John Basilone receives the Medal of Honor, the first enlisted Marine to receive the award in World War II. The citation describes his actions as extraordinary heroism and conspicuous gallantry in action above and beyond the call of duty. But Basilone doesn't feel like a hero. When reporters ask him how he survived that night, he says, "I just did my job. My job was to hold that position, so I held it." The Marines wanted to send him home, use him for war bond tours, show the American public a real hero. Basilone agrees to one tour, then demands to return to combat. "I can't leave my men," he tells his commanders. "They're still fighting. I should be fighting with them." In 1945, Basilone returns to combat. He lands on Iwo Jima on the first day of the invasion. He's leading his men across the beach when a mortar shell explodes. John Basilone is killed instantly. He was 27 years old. But on that night in Guadalcanal, when 3,000 Japanese soldiers tried to overrun Henderson Field, when his position was the last obstacle between them and victory, John Basilone made a choice. He could have fallen back, could have retreated to better positions, could have saved himself. Instead, he stayed, fought for 8 hours, operated multiple weapons, ran through enemy fire for ammunition, urinated on his guns to keep them working. Because his job was to hold that position, so he held it. One man, one night, 38 confirmed kills against waves of attackers that never stopped. He was outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded, and he refused to surrender even 1 inch of ground. August 6, 1915, Osowiec Fortress, northeastern Poland. The fortress guards a crucial railway line that Germany desperately needs for their invasion of Russia. For months, German forces have besieged Osowiec. They've used artillery, they've used sappers to dig tunnels, They've tried direct assaults. Nothing works. The Russian defenders, less than 1,000 soldiers, continue to hold. German high command is frustrated. They decide to use a new weapon. Chemical weapons. Chlorine gas. At 4 a.m., German engineers release 30 cylinders of chlorine gas. A massive green-yellow cloud drifts toward the Russian positions. Chlorine gas is horrific. It reacts with moisture in the lungs, creates hydrochloric acid. Victims essentially drown as their lungs dissolve. Gas masks in 1915 are primitive. Many don't work. The Russian defenders have almost no protection. The gas cloud engulfs the fortress. Russian soldiers scream, choke, collapse. The fortress becomes silent. From the German lines, officers watch through binoculars. They wait 30 minutes for the gas to disperse, then order the attack. 7,000 German infantry advance, confident no one could survive that gas attack. They march across no man's land in formation. No resistance, no gunfire. They reach the first defensive positions. Still nothing. German soldiers begin to smile. This is going to be easy. Then, from the fortress, a sound. Coughing. Wet, horrible coughing, like men drowning. German soldiers stop. Listen. What is that? Russian soldiers emerge from the fortress. But they're not soldiers anymore. They're corpses. Walking corpses. Their skin is yellow-green from the gas. Blood streams from their mouths and noses. Their lungs are dissolving. They can barely breathe. Some are wrapped in rags soaked in urine, a primitive gas mask. Many have pieces of their lungs coming out of their mouths when they cough. They should be dead. They are dying, but they're not dead yet, and they're advancing. The Russian defenders, fewer than 100 men still capable of fighting, fix bayonets and charge. They can't run. Their lungs are too damaged. They walk, stagger, some crawl, but they keep coming, coughing blood, pieces of their lungs in their hands, still carrying their rifles, still moving forward. The German soldiers panic. This isn't possible. These men should be dead. They're dead men walking.
Corpses fighting. Ghosts. The German infantry breaks. 7,000 soldiers flee from 100 dying Russians. They run in terror, stampede through their own barbed wire, trampling each other. Some are caught in their own wire, trapped. The Russians reach them. Bayonets rise and fall. Behind the fleeing Germans, their artillery continues firing. The shells kill retreating German soldiers. Hundreds die from friendly fire. The attack becomes a complete rout. The Russians pursue as far as they can, until their lungs finally give out, until they collapse from the gas poisoning. The Germans don't stop running until they're back at their original positions, a distance of several miles, all from 100 dying men. After the battle, Russian officers count the survivors. 48 men, out of nearly 1,000 defenders. Everyone who was in the gas zone either died immediately or was dying, including the men who charged. Most died within a day. Some lasted a week. All of them knew they were dead when they stood up. The gas had destroyed their lungs. They were drowning in their own blood. Medical science said they should have collapsed immediately. But they didn't collapse. They stood, fixed bayonets, and charged. Why? Russian Lieutenant Vladimir Kudlinsky, one of the few officers who survived, was asked this question after the war. Why did they charge? They were dying. They could have stayed down, died peacefully. Kudlinsky's answer was simple. The Germans used gas, chemical weapons, against soldiers, against men who couldn't fight back. That's not war. That's murder. So we decided if we were going to die, we would die on our feet. Charging, fighting, not lying in the mud choking. The Germans called it the attack of the dead men, der Angriff der Toten. The reports described dead men who refused to die, corpses that fought. It became a legend in the German army, a horror story. At Osijek Fortress there's now a memorial. It says, "They did not abandon their positions. even in death. 100 men, poisoned, dying with every breath an agony, against 7,000 attackers. They should have died quietly. Instead, they stood up, picked up their weapons, and charged. Outnumbered 70 to 1, lungs dissolving, blood streaming from their mouths, they refused to surrender, refused to lie down and die. They chose how they would die, on their feet, fighting. That's not just courage, that's something primal, something that exists in humans when pushed to the absolute limit. The refusal to quit, even when your body is literally dying, even when every breath is torture. You stand, you fight, you make the enemy remember you.
September 1940, the Battle of Britain. German Luftwaffe bombers are pounding England daily. The Royal Air Force is desperately trying to defend the skies. Among the RAF pilots is Douglas Bader, age 30, squadron leader, and he has no legs. Douglas lost both legs in a flying accident in 1931, 9 years before the war, a crash during an aerobatic display. His right leg was amputated above the knee, his left leg below the knee. Doctors said he'd never walk properly again, never drive, certainly never fly. Douglas proved them wrong. He learned to walk on artificial legs, then learned to run, to play sports, to dance, and to fly. When war broke out, the RAF initially rejected him. No legs meant no flying. Douglas persisted, wrote letters, made phone calls. Finally, in 1939, the RAF was so desperate for experienced pilots that they gave him a chance. One test flight. Pass or fail. Douglas not only passed, he exceeded every requirement. The RAF gave him a squadron. Now, in September 1940, Douglas Bader leads his squadron into combat almost daily, and he's one of the most effective pilots in the RAF. 20 confirmed kills, dozens more probable. The German pilots know his name. They call him Der Flieger ohne Beine, the flyer without legs. On August 30th, 1940, Douglas leads 12 Hurricanes in an attack on a formation of German bombers over London. 50 bombers, escorted by 70 fighters. 12 RAF planes against 120 German aircraft. The odds are 10 to 1. Standard RAF tactics say avoid engaging when outnumbered, wait for better odds. Douglas ignores those tactics. He leads his squadron straight into the German formation. The British planes tear through the bomber formation. Douglas shoots down 2 bombers in the first pass. His squadron accounts for 5 more. But now the German fighters are on them. Messerschmitt 109s, some of the best fighters in the world, flown by experienced pilots. The dogfight is chaos, planes twisting, diving, climbing, guns firing. Douglas's Hurricane is hit. Cannon shells tear through his wing. His aircraft is damaged but still flying. He keeps fighting, shoots down a German fighter, then another. But more Germans are coming. Douglas is alone now, separated from his squadron, surrounded by enemy aircraft. He should retreat, run for home. Instead, he attacks. Alone against a dozen German fighters, Douglas shoots down one, damages another. But the Germans coordinate their attack. 6 Messerschmitts come at him from different angles. He can't evade them all. Cannon shells hit his Hurricane. The engine catches fire. The controls are shot away. The aircraft is going down. Douglas has to bail out. He jettisons the canopy, unbuckles his harness, tries to climb out, but he can't. His right artificial leg is trapped.
Caught in the wreckage of the cockpit, the Hurricane is spinning, diving toward the ground. Douglas is trapped, on fire, falling. He pulls his leg as hard as he can. The prosthetic leg comes off, stays in the aircraft. Douglas tumbles free, opens his parachute, lands in France, which is occupied by German forces. Douglas is captured within hours. The Germans treat him with respect. He's a famous pilot, a warrior. They send a message to the RAF. "We have captured squadron leader Bader. He lost his artificial leg in the crash. Can you send a replacement?" The RAF agrees. They drop a new prosthetic leg by parachute, along with a note. "We expect him back when the war is over." Douglas gets his new leg, immediately starts planning escape. The Germans move him to a more secure POW camp. Douglas escapes, is recaptured, escapes again, recaptured. He escapes so many times that the Germans threaten to take his artificial legs away. "You can't escape without legs," they tell him. Douglas tells them to try it, see what happens. He's such a problem that the Germans eventually send him to Colditz Castle, the high-security prison for impossible prisoners, serial escapers, troublemakers. Douglas continues trying to escape from Colditz. He's recaptured every time, but he never stops trying. The German commandant finally asks him, "Why do you keep trying? The war is almost over. You'll be released soon. Just wait." Douglas looks at him. "Because I'm a soldier. Soldiers don't quit. Even when captured, even when outnumbered, even when the odds are impossible." When the war ends, Douglas Bader returns to England a hero. He flew over 200 combat missions, 22 confirmed kills, dozens more unconfirmed. Shot down once, captured, escaped multiple times, all without legs. After the war, a reporter asks him if losing his legs made him a worse pilot. Douglas thinks for a moment, then smiles. "Maybe it made me better. I had nothing to lose. I was already living on borrowed time. Every day was a gift. So why not fight harder? Why not take risks other pilots wouldn't take? I was already supposed to be dead." Douglas Bader lived until 1982, age 72, flew for decades after the war, inspired countless disabled veterans, showed the world that physical limitations don't define capability. But his real lesson is simpler. On that day in August 1940, when he led 12 planes against 120, when he fought alone against a dozen enemy fighters, when he was trapped in a burning aircraft falling from the sky, Douglas Bader had every reason to quit. No one would have blamed him. He'd already done more than anyone expected, more than most pilots with both legs would ever accomplish. But he didn't quit. He fought until his aircraft was literally shot out from under him. And even after being captured, he continued fighting, trying to escape, refusing to accept defeat. Outnumbered, outgunned, disabled, captured. And never, not once, did he surrender.
5 battles, 5 impossible odds. Audie Murphy alone on a burning tank facing 250 Germans. 700 Polish soldiers holding 42,000 invaders for 3 days. John Basilone fighting for 8 hours straight, killing 38 enemy soldiers. 100 dying Russian soldiers charging 7,000 Germans. Douglas Bader fighting without legs, escaping without freedom. What connects these stories? What makes someone stand and fight when every logical voice says retreat, when surrender is the smart choice, when survival means running? It's not courage. Courage is feeling fear and acting anyway. This is something deeper. This is the fundamental human refusal to accept defeat. It's the decision that if you're going to die, you die fighting. If you're going to lose, you make them pay for every inch. If you're going to fall, you fall forward, never backward. Audie Murphy could have left that burning tank. No one would have blamed him. But he knew if he left, his men would die. So he stayed.
After the war, military historians studied these battles, tried to understand how outnumbered forces held against overwhelming odds. The conclusions were surprising. Superior tactics helped, better positions mattered, but the real difference was psychological. The defenders had made a decision. They would not retreat, would not surrender, would fight to the last. That decision changed how they fought, made them more dangerous, more unpredictable, more effective. Attackers expect rational behavior. They expect defenders to retreat when outnumbered, to surrender when surrounded. When defenders refuse to follow that script, when they stand and fight when they should run, it creates chaos in the attacking force. Audie Murphy, alone on a burning tank, made the Germans think it was a trap.
700 Poles holding for 3 days made the Germans think they faced a much larger force. Basilone fighting for 8 hours made the Japanese think the position was impregnable. The dead men who refused to die made the Germans think they faced ghosts. Bader fighting without legs made the Germans respect the RAF even more. The last stand is not just about the defenders. It's about the attackers, about what happens when an attacking force encounters an enemy that refuses to behave rationally, that won't surrender when surrounded, that keeps fighting when fighting seems hopeless. It creates doubt, fear, hesitation. And in combat, those emotions can be more powerful than bullets. These 5 stories represent thousands of similar battles in World War II and throughout history. Soldiers who chose to stand when standing meant death, who held positions they couldn't hold, who fought battles they couldn't win. Many of them died. Their last stands failed militarily, but they succeeded in something more important. They proved that humans, when pushed to the limit, will choose to fight rather than surrender. That courage isn't about feeling brave. It's about making the choice to stand, even when you're terrified. That honor isn't about following rules. It's about refusing to abandon your principles, even when abandoning them would save your life. The next time you face overwhelming odds, when the logical choice is to quit, when everyone tells you to surrender, remember these stories. Remember Audie Murphy on the burning tank, Captain Reginus and his 700 at Wizna, Basilone and his 8-hour stand, the dead men who refused to die, Douglas Bader, who refused to let disability define him. They were outnumbered, outgunned, surrounded, and they chose to fight anyway. Not because they would win, but because the choice to fight mattered more than the outcome. That's the lesson of the last stand. Not that you'll survive, not that you'll win, but that when you're faced with impossible odds, you have one choice that no one can take from you. The choice to stand, to fight, to refuse surrender. And sometimes, impossibly, that choice is enough.
If these stories moved you, leave a comment below. Tell us which last stand affected you most. Was it Audie Murphy alone on the burning tank? The 700 Poles at Wizna? Basilone's 8-hour battle? The attack of the dead men? Or Douglas Bader refusing to let disability stop him? And if you know someone facing impossible odds right now, someone who needs to hear that standing and fighting matters even when you can't win, share this documentary with them. Sometimes we all need a reminder that courage isn't about feeling brave, it's about making the choice to stand, even when standing seems suicidal. Subscribe to this channel for more stories of impossible courage, unbreakable will, and the soldiers who refuse to surrender no matter the odds. Hit the notification bell so you don't miss the next documentary. And check the description for sources, books, and additional resources about these incredible last stands. Thank you for watching. Thank you for remembering these soldiers who stood when standing meant death. And remember, when you face your own impossible battle, you have the same choice they had. You can surrender, or you can fight. They chose to fight. What will you choose?